Hi guys, Sean here from digiDirect. Today we're going to be checking out the new Nikon D850. Now I'm sure you've heard a lot about this camera. There's been a ton of buzz around it, and it literally flew off the shelves when it came out earlier this month. And this is really aimed squarely at the working professional. There's a lot of high-end performance in this camera. It also takes a lot of cues and features from the very popular D500, which Nikon came out with recently as well. But without any further ado, we'll go through all these features, but let's start with a look at the body of the camera. So form-wise, there's not too many surprises here. It looks very similar to a lot of full-frame cameras Nikon has put out in the past. It's a fully weather-sealed camera. It's got a very solid feel to it, a nice weight to the camera. A really nice deep grip. It's very, very comfortable to hold, even if you've got larger hands, and even if you've got a weighty lens on the front, it's gonna give you some nice leverage on there, so that's excellent. One unique point here, we have the addition of a tilting LCD screen, which is going to allow you to shoot from high or low angles, which is really nice. That's very hard to find on full-frame DSLRs. It's also a touchscreen. That's also something new in this range for Nikon, so that's a nice addition. We also gain a joystick. We saw that on the D500, but it was not on the D810. This allows you to quickly and effectively change your AF point. The viewfinder is also very nice and large, and it features a 0.75 times magnification. It looks really nice. Other than that, we see a lot of similarities here in the button layout. We've got a couple of customizable function buttons, the top LCD screen, our drive selector, all things that we're used to seeing on Nikon full-frame cameras. On the side, we've got an HDMI and USB port, as well as a mic and headphone jack. And on the front, we've got a remote and a flash port. On the side here, we've got slots for an XQD card and an SD card, and you can, of course, save your files to these separately. And at the bottom, we've got our EN-EL15A battery. Now that's rated for 1,840 shots on this camera. That's quite a good battery rating. Note there is also a battery grip you can get for this camera. We also do have Bluetooth and Wi-Fi capability on this camera, and therefore SnapBridge capability, which is something that we've seen in a number of recent Nikon cameras as well. So the first thing spec-wise Nikon has done here is up the sensor resolution game. This camera has a 45 megapixel sensor inside of it with no low-pass filter. That's a ton of resolution, and that's approaching the top end of what you'd be able to get without going to a medium format camera. That's going to be great for a lot of different styles of photography. Landscape photographers in particular are really going to like this because you always want more resolution when you're shooting landscape. It's going to allow you to crop in quite a bit with your files, so you can be a lot more flexible with them. It's going to allow you to blow up huge prints if you need. So a lot of different uses for that extra resolution. Although it is going to mean that the file sizes coming out of this camera are going to be quite a bit larger than on a camera with a much lower resolution. So it's going to take up more space on your SD card or on your computer. Luckily, Nikon has included like a half RAW mode that actually shoots a 25 megapixel shot, or even lower if you don't need the full resolution and you want to save on some space. They've also added an electronic shutter mode on here, which essentially gives you a silent shooting mode if you're somewhere where you have to be quiet, like perhaps a wedding ceremony. But it also means that you can shoot without having any mirror shake at all. Now, don't get me wrong, the mirror dampening in this camera is quite good. You're not going to see a lot of shutter shock. But with 45 megapixels, if you really, really want to make sure you're getting the absolute most out of that, chuck this on a tripod in electronic shutter mode, and you're going to make sure that you're maximizing that resolution there. Also, they've given a low ISO mode of 64 on this camera now, so you can shoot at a very, very low ISO. That's great if you're shooting a really bright environment, especially if you're shooting video and you want to maintain that 1/50th shutter speed or thereabouts, and it's bright outside, you maybe don't have ND filters. It just gives you a little bit more flexibility, so that's very handy to have. So let's touch on the autofocus system here, because this is where this camera really gets serious. It inherits the 153-point autofocus system that was on the D5. This is just hands down one of the best and most effective autofocusing systems on the market. It's a definite upgrade over the 51-point autofocus system that was on the D810, and it also gains the 3D tracking functionality that was in the D5 and the D500. This system is fast, it's responsive, it's accurate. It's almost impossible to take an out-of-focus photo with this camera. Take a look at some of these bird shots. Now, these are not good photos, but what I was doing here is I was basically shooting from the hip without looking at the viewfinder, quick drawing the camera up and just pointing at the subject as it was flying past, just to see how fast it could grab focus and keep it. All of these shots are in focus. It's amazing at keeping focus, amazing at tracking focus. You've got a subject coming towards you, which is traditionally very difficult for cameras to keep track of, and it's just with it the whole way. If you're shooting any kind of sports or action, this camera is going to absolutely do it for you. For low light shooters, the autofocus system is effective at up to -4 EV. So if you're shooting in dark environments like a wedding reception hall or a concert or something, that's still going to work for you. It has a 7 frames per second burst shooting rate. That actually goes up to 9 frames per second if you've got the battery grip on there. So it's a quite fast burst shooting rate. And you've got a buffer of 51 raw photos. So you can shoot for about 7 seconds straight before you fill up the buffer. That's pretty impressive considering that this is shooting 45 megapixel shots. Obviously, if you jump down to half RAW or JPEG, that buffer size is going to increase. So excellent for action, lots of fast shooting options, excellent autofocus tracking. The only area where it falls a little bit down from that is when you're autofocusing in live view. There is a noticeable performance decrease when you're shooting either in live view in general, which means the electronic shutter, or also autofocus for video. It's not quite up to snuff for those capabilities, but for most of these situations when you're shooting a lot of fast action, you're probably gonna be using the viewfinder anyway, so that's not a huge thing, but just be aware of it. But overall, an exceptionally high quality autofocus system here on the D850. Looking at video now, the D850 is actually a surprisingly capable video camera. And I say surprisingly because Nikon is not generally well known for their video performance. But the camera can shoot 4K video with a full sensor readout, which is excellent. Now you also can go into a crop mode, which can still shoot full 4K video. That's handy if you need a little bit of extra reach. Maybe you got a prime lens and you can't move the camera. Chuck it into the crop mode, you'll get a little bit extra telephoto reach out of it. Both of them are 4K, both of them are really, really nice, crisp, high quality video. So that's excellent. It also can shoot 1080p at up to 120 frames per second. Now, like most cameras, as you increase the frame rate, the video gets a little bit softer, but even at 120, it's still pretty good, letting you get some nice slow-mo footage, which is excellent as well, very handy to have. The camera has 8K time-lapse, which is great, although I will note that in this mode, it does not put the time-lapse together for you in camera. You do have to take the photos to your editor and make the time-lapse yourself. It's got a mic and headphone jack, so you can attach an external microphone and monitor that audio with no issue. That's excellent. They've added focus peaking in here, but strangely, it's only for 1080. You can't use the focus peaking in 4K. It's a bit of a strange gap in the feature set, especially since in 4K you've got that higher resolution. You really want to make sure you're in focus and you don't have focus peaking. So that's a little bit weird. It does have a flat picture profile, which will give you a bit of a lower contrast image, which is better for grading, but it's not like an S-Log or a V-Log profile. It's not a profile that's absolutely, really, really meant for color grading. Overall, this is very strong performance in video from a company that's really not known for that, so I'm glad to see them trying to up their game in that area. If you're primarily a stills photographer, but you have to occasionally shoot video and so on, this is going to be excellent. You can shoot really nice high-resolution footage, slow-mo, a nice feature set, time-lapse as well. Really, it's going to do it for you. If you are looking for a camera primarily for video, I would still look elsewhere. There's still other better options on the market, but like I said, it has come a long way and is certainly very competent. So there's very little that I can fault the D850 for here, and it's obvious why it's had all that buzz around it. It's a well-built camera that takes exceptionally sharp and high-resolution photos, and it has an amazing autofocus system inside of it, and very good video features as well. I think this is going to be a workhorse camera if you're a working professional. It's got something for all different genres, landscape shooters, wedding, portraits, sports shooters. Really, really a well-rounded camera that excels in almost every aspect. The one caveat I will say is that this is obviously not an inexpensive camera, so you're paying for that performance, but for someone who is making their living from their photography, it's absolutely a worthwhile investment, and I think it will not disappoint. Now, as I mentioned, the D850 is out now. You can come into one of our stores to give it a play. We've got stores in the Sydney CBD, Bondi Junction, Miranda, Chatswood, the Brisbane and Melbourne CBD, and Cannington, Western Australia. You can also get the Nikon D850 on our website at www.digidirect.com.au. Thanks, guys. Take care.